All right, so this is the Crushing Limits Unleashed podcast. We got a great guest today, IFBB Pro Aaron Clark. Welcome to the show, brother.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. I can't remember if we met officially. I've been following your career, gosh, since you were doing like the national shows.
There was only one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
2012. Yeah,
Yeah, I remember following, is it the 2014 New York Pro? I believe you
yeah,
won that one.
yeah. That's the one I won. That was my best year, 2014. Yeah,
Yeah, that was such a killer look, you know?
thanks, man. Yeah, I was so stoked about that show. I mean, because I had just done the New York Pro was my first pro show the year before, and somehow I got invited. Like I guess I had signed with a supplement company, and they were able to like pull some strings or talk to the right people, and I got invited. It was the first 212 Arnold, so it was a big deal for me. Yeah,
That,
the 212 Arnold, and then the New York Pro. Yeah,
yeah. How did you do in the 212? I know you've gotten fourth at the Arnold at least once, right?
I got third that year.
Third. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
um, and
fantastic.
and for me, I mean, for me that was a win because the guys that beat me were David Henry and Flex Lewis.
Oh,
Well, I mean, it was my second pro show, and they
Yeah.
had both won an Olympia, so
right.
multiple Olympias. So I was super happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't be bad losing to those
Yeah,
guys.
right, right.
Well, I gotta dive right in. We're huge fans. We've obviously been following you, but then as of I would say what the past year or two, Mr. Whiteboard has come out, and I was like, where does he come up with this stuff? Like, so
Yeah.
how did that start? Like, take us through that.
Oh, here, man. I don't know. Um, yeah, I guess for the longest time, I would just post your regular lifting videos, right? Your progress shots, just your regular stuff. And I'm a really introverted guy naturally, and everyone's like, "Oh man, you got to do more talking. You got to really like show who you are." And so I started really trying. I would make talking videos just like this,
Yeah,
talking to the camera. And it's okay, it's hit or miss, right? Depending on what you're talking about, right? If you're talking about trend or something, then people will click and watch the video. But a lot of topics, because there's not
yeah,
a lot going on, right?
right.
And one video with the whiteboard, and people liked it, so I just kept doing it.
That's
Just
awesome.
silly. It's
Yeah.
hard to keep coming up with stuff, but sometimes I'll just have an idea. And I used to do a lot of cartooning back in the
Okay.
day. So obviously, these drawings are dumbed down, so it doesn't take me 5 hours to make. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
but
remember like the first one. I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, all right, this is gonna be pretty good. Like I knew it was gonna be funny. I just didn't know how funny it was actually gonna be.
Oh, they're great.
yeah, I think the one that people really liked was it was like, so now you're a coach. You did one show, and now you
Oh,
think you're a coach.
Yeah.
That one really hit off. People really liked that one. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the one people really liked. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's funny shit, man.
yeah.
Some of the I can't remember like there was something where you're like, does this make you more masculine or something like that?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's like you feeding off of all the things that you see on Instagram, right?
Hmm.
There's so many people, man, there's so many talking heads, you know how it is,
Oh
just like
yeah.
spouting off, and so much silliness, like of big egos and just like kind of delusional people, and just like it's a circus, there's an unending supply of things to make fun of
Yeah.
in bodybuilding and fitness for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, man. Like, I mean, I've been following the sport for gosh, like 27 years. You know, been to the Olympia a million times. We watch most of the pro shows and like just seeing the transition. How do you feel about it? Because obviously a lot of guys are like, all right, the 90s are the best, but I feel like going into some of the 2000s, we had some really good years, obviously, with Ronnie and Phil. And then
Hmm.
once social media came, it's like you said, this is like a different ball game now.
It is a different ball game, but I think you have to take two things into consideration. One is that there's a list of pros and cons on both ends, right? I think that before, um, it was a lot more like gatekeepy, right? Like the media owned bodybuilding, like Flex Magazine, MD,
Mhm.
right? And so to really make any money, it's like you had to make it and then get a contract, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a very small upper echelon of people that were making any money. And there's some pros to that, right? It's like, oh, well, now the best bodybuilders are the guys making a living from
Hmm.
it, right? Which makes sense, but it's such a small table, right?
Yeah.
That it had. So I
Yeah.
mean, and and also like with those magazines, nobody was getting the truth, right? And there's pros and cons to that because with the truth comes a lot of um, things disguised as the truth that aren't
Mhm.
really the truth, or maybe truth that people shouldn't consume, right? Like
Right.
bad advice. So I mean, I don't know. It's a really it's a double edged sword. I have mixed feelings about it, and I think my personal opinion is that it's kind of ignorant to really be negative about it because it's like, hey, like here we are, and you have endless opportunity. It's all in your hand. Like, go
Mhm.
make some content. Go do
Yeah.
something. Right. Some. Be creative. Like whatever you want. Like it's you can put whatever you want out there, which is both great and terrible. Right. And yeah, I mean, because even in the magazines, like it was cool, but I couldn't say whatever I wanted.
Right.
Right.
Hmm.
And it's just it's such a different world. I don't know. I understand how people are disheartened because, yeah, the people making money now are not always the best bodybuilders, right? They're the best,
Right.
but it's all about money, right?
Yeah.
That's why there's a million divisions and everything, right? That's what keeps it going.
Yeah. I feel
Yeah,
like, like Lee Priest was always, in '03, he had like petitioned, and then they finally, we talked about on another pod, they finally were able to pay outside of the top 10. They got $2,000 a piece, because that's what he was really fighting for and petitioning for that year. And I mean, we all know 2000, I mean, doesn't even cover a 30-year prep, you know. But
yeah,
like you said, it was moving in the right direction to where, yeah, anyone can get paid, even the guys who don't even compete, you know?
right. And I think there's pros and cons to that. Um, and I think the good thing is your heart. If you're competing, your heart should never be in the place of like I'm going to do this to make money. I
Hmm.
mean, like
Yeah.
I tell people like, hey, like there's no pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. Like it's just suffering and cool pictures and some bowling trophies and memories. And that's great. I'm not hating on it at all,
Yeah.
but whenever I hear people say things like, yeah, man, like, I'm just trying to turn pro and then I'm gonna like acting like they're gonna make a living off it. I'm like, dude, and
Yeah.
that's not gonna happen. Uh, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's true. I mean, even the ones where you see tremendous potential, even then you still might not make a living, it might not be enough.
you never know. And tremendous potential is just potential, right? I
Yeah.
think some of the people I've seen with the greatest potential never ended up being anything, you know,
Yeah.
just fall off somewhere along the way. So yeah, you never know. You never know. Anything can happen.
Right, right. So tell us, how did you get into bodybuilding? Like, did you play sports as a kid? Like, take us through that road.
So I played growing up. I did play baseball, but once I got into high school, I was very anti-team sports. I was a skateboarder. I was
Hmm.
like, sports are dumb, like kind of like thought I was a punk, punk kid or whatever. So I just skateboarded, and I I don't know. I struggled a lot with depression and definitely, body dysmorphia, and I had eating disorders, and I think that bodybuilding was it was getting very bad, and I knew that somehow I needed to take control of it. And so my way of taking control of it was like, okay, I'm going to train really hard and I'm going to put these things at like, these meals in my body and kind of try to use that disorder for something constructive. Right.
Hmm.
And that was never of the mindset of I'm going to compete. I had no interest in competing. But I think it's very interesting to look back because I was about 110 pounds, but just like peeled, like veins in my abs, like shredded. So it's very funny because it's almost like I had a post contest rebound. I was like starved
Yep.
and I wasn't training and I was 17 years old. And it's like, then all of a sudden I started training really hard and eating all this, nutrient dense food. And I just blew up. Like,
Man.
I think that first year I was 110 and I got up into the 160s, like lean, which is a crazy, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people say that's not possible, right? And well, I think it's just the right circumstances, and especially at that age too, right? Your hormones
Hmm.
and everything are crazy. Um, so people from the gym would see me and they would be like, Aaron, dude, you got to compete. Like they would always put that in my head. And at first, I was just a typical teenage boy. I was like, no, that's gay,
Hmm.
just like I had no interest in it. And, but I think eventually I saw the photos of the guys at Teen Nationals and I was like, no, I think I could win.
Hmm.
And so I did Teen Nationals at 19. And it's so funny to look back because I didn't really have any guidance. I was just flying by the seat of my pants. Like there were some older dudes at the gym who would like give me tips,
Hmm.
and they were like, get preparation H and rub it all over your body, to dry, like to get rid of
Oh
the
yeah.
water, silly stuff like that, but not like really good advice.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't have a coach, anything like that. And so for this show, I had to qualify for it. So it was the Southern States to qualify. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but the tan was like an ordeal. And so to go to Teen Nationals, I was like, this time I'm going to get myself covered. I'm going to do it right.
Hmm.
So I go to Hollywood Tans with like a few days out before I go to Pittsburgh. And I walk in there and I'm like, what is the darkest tan you have? And the girl's like, oh, this one people complain is like too dark all the time. I was like, sounds perfect. Give it
Yeah.
to me. And, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, this is not going to cut it. And
Yeah.
she's like, oh, don't worry, sweetheart. It'll get darker. It'll darken. I'm like, okay, I hope so.
Yeah.
So, I go to Pittsburgh and I'm just like looking at my skin. And I look, because I was super pasty and yeah, it was a spray tan, like
Right.
I'm
Right.
going to prom spray tan.
Yeah.
And so I was like, shit, I am up creek without a paddle here. And I went and I tried to get a tan, like from the pro tan guy,
Hmm.
and I had a credit card, and I was like, hey man, I need a tan, and he said, sorry, I don't know if I'll have enough spray for everybody, kid, and he turned me
Oh,
away.
Oh my gosh.
And so I went up on stage, just pale as my skin looked like that on stage.
yeah.
Everyone called me Casper. Um, and I remember getting off stage, and Dave Palumbo ran up to me and he's like, what the hell's wrong with you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
He's like, you would have won the whole show. And I was like, I know, I'm sorry. Like, I tried. He wouldn't tan me. He's like, what do you mean he wouldn't tan you? What?
Yeah.
Like, just like, what? And it's funny because I'll never forget after prejudging, and I went back to the lobby where the tan guy was, and
Yeah.
I don't know why he would say this to me, but he said, "Bro, if I had known you looked like that, I would have tanned you last night. It's like, why would you say that to a 19-year-old kid?
No.
Like basically, like thought you were a little chump, you know, like
Yeah.
shooed me away.
Yeah.
Um, so I got second there, though. I got second place,
Hmm.
which, um, and then after that, I tore my pec, and I was like, I quit. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore because I think I had really sacrificed a lot through my teen years to bodybuild,
Hmm.
right? Like I didn't party or drink or do drugs or like I was like super on
Yep.
the rails. And so I just said, fuck it, done. I don't want to do this anymore.
Hmm.
So I just went and, did whatever. But like a few months in, I was just I started down to 130 pounds
Man.
and I was just so depressed. And I was like, damn. Everyone would see me and they'd be like, what happened?
Hmm.
Right. You're like, oh. Um, and I don't know, there was just some voice like being like, you have to go back and do it. Like you're not done. You have to go back.
Hmm.
So yeah, I rehabbed the pack and I started training again. And I guess I was 20, and when I was 22, I did a local show and I won the heavyweights and the overall there. And so I was like, all right, like let's see what we can do.
Hmm.
And then I did USA's, and then yeah, that's when I did the New York Pro for the first time the next year, and
Yeah.
then 2014, that's where we started.
Yep. Yep. Circling back, how did you tear the pec?
Well, it's kind of interesting. So as a teenager, so I didn't take any real gear until I was 21,
Hmm.
but I did take a couple pro hormones because they were legal back then,
Right.
uh, and but it wasn't that like I had really bad acne all through high school, terrible, like just like like an infection, like a pepperoni pizza face. And it wasn't a good look because I was like jacked and lean. So
Yeah.
people would treat me a certain way. They would be like, look at this piece of shit teenager on steroids. Like I remember at the gym one time, this dad was with his son and he pointed at my face and he's like, see, son, that's why you don't take steroids. That'll
Oh.
happen. Like people were really shitty about it.
Yeah.
And probably one of the reasons why at a young age I was like, fuck it, and just took
Hmm.
steroids because like I was already being, treated that way.
Profiled.
But yeah, so the acne was so bad, so I took Accutane, and well, on Accutane, I hurt my back where I had like this pinched kind of by my sacrum on the left side. It was like this. It bothered me for a decade. I had to train through it. I mean, it was bad. And I tore the pec on
Hmm.
Accutane. Um, and how I tore it, I think a week out from teen nationals, I was barbell benching and I felt like a small pinch, but
Hmm.
nothing happened. And, at that age, nothing traumatic had happened to me in the gym. So if there was ever pain, I was just like, you're just being a bitch, and I would just push through it.
Yeah.
So, it was tight. But if I did dumbbell presses, I could kind of like get in the position where it didn't feel as bad. And one day I felt real tight and I was like, let's go, and I was
Mhm.
just doing a set of 12 with dumbbells.
Yeah.
It just went pow, it was a pure tendon, no bruising. The tendon just pulled off the bone like a
Hmm.
chicken bone.
Man.
Um, but I've had a lot of injuries. Nothing, I mean, well, nothing overly traumatic, but a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been pushing hard for a while, so yeah.
Yeah. Makes
That's
you stronger in the end, you know?
yeah, you learn a lot.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
So tell us about like your training since we're on the topic of training. What have you tried? What do you like? What do you don't like? You know, what are you currently doing for like a training style, if you will?
So I think just like anybody who's probably my age generation in bodybuilding, probably grew up watching Ronnie Coleman,
Of course.
Branch Warren,
Yep.
Johnny Jackson, all those guys, right?
Yeah.
So, and respect, like, but that's was like that's how you train, And
Mhm.
so I started off training like a maniac, and I was strong. I look back at I was real strong, but I was fearless, right? And over time, you kind of get the fear of God put in you in the gym a little bit. You get some scares. So I don't know if my style has changed drastically, um, but my like if you watched me train, I'm very deliberate now, and I'm not just like you know
Grip and rip.
like yeah. I mean, because you know how it is, man. Like you want to train tomorrow, right? Like you can't. Yeah. So yeah, I lifted a lot of weight, as heavy as I could, and yeah, you snap some things, and you're like, all right. But right now, I train 6 days a week. You know, uh, like um, chest and some delts. Well, no, sorry, I'm out of order. I'll start with quads
Mhm.
usually, and then I'll do today. I did back with like a bicep exercise, and then I'll do chest with a little shoulders, and then I'll do hamstrings and glutes, and then I'll do uh, shoulders with like a lot of core and calves and stuff. And then on Saturday, I'll do a little tiny bit of chest, a little bit of back, and then bis and tris.
Okay.
And then Sunday off. So
Nice.
yeah, it's kind of like a mix between like push pull legs and like a bro split. It's like you
Mhm.
know, but um, I've always trained pretty high volume,
Mhm.
too high volume. People are
Yeah.
like, you don't need to spend that much time in the gym, and I was like, thinking I was like going above and beyond, but
Mhm.
I was just putting more miles on the odometer for sure.
I feel like it's better than under training though, you know?
Yeah, I mean it worked, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
hindsight. There's
Yeah.
always things you'll look back and be like, man, I should have done this, but
Yeah.
oh well, right?
100%.
But yeah, I mean, I think like about 2 years ago, I tore my adductor real bad squatting.
Hmm.
I used to love heavy barbell squats, and yeah, at the bottom of a squat, boom, my adductor blew out. So like, you know, I I haven't been squatting and deadlifting like barbell as much,
Hmm.
but hack squat and everything else, just it is. I think the longer you train, you have more obstacles that you're like navigating around. So you're just
Yeah.
like, how hard can I push and still continue to push, right? So
Yeah.
that's how it is.
Where do you train currently?
Where?
Yeah.
So I live in North Carolina. I
Okay.
train at a Gold's Gym.
Okay.
Okay.
We're in Minneapolis.
Okay.
Yeah. Minnesota. We train at the Los Campeones.
Okay. I think I've heard of that.
Yeah. They
It's
have,
like
I
a
mean,
bodybuilder gym, right? Kind of.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They have, I mean, they have phenomenal equipment. It's
Yeah.
mostly Panada,
Okay.
but
That's
yeah,
cool.
it's a mix of stuff, but yeah, really, really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
Out of
I
hammer
mean, this
squat.
Gold's has for man from like 2019 to like last year. I was working out at a Crunch Fitness,
Hmm.
and like you can get it done, but I think the older I get and the less I'm just like, I'm going to die under this barbell kind of mentality, it's more of like, no, I would like to have a belt squat and the hack squat and like some of this other, especially for legs, like
Yeah.
some different equipment. Yeah.
Yeah. So we like to, I mean, we've hit a lot of the main gyms. We just got back from Houston, so we tried a few new gyms out there. We do travel a lot, like with clients and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what would you say would be, let's say, like your top three best gyms you've ever been to, and maybe like a tidbit of why? Like, what do you like about that gym?
All right, let's see. So, huh. So off the rip, I'll say that DMV Iron is very impressive. Have you been
I've heard
there?
that. We
Yeah.
haven't been there. I've heard DMV is outstanding.
I think just in general, like impressiveness, that's the one you walk into and you're like, holy shit,
Yeah,
like this is crazy. Like four of everything, kind of like like Panada, all the different brands of like a machine,
sure.
right? Like got everything and a big turf and a bit like everything. But I haven't been to a lot of the newer big gyms that you see on social media either.
Yeah.
Um, I used to go to the Shop gym in Virginia. I've
Mhm.
heard that.
I've heard
It's
of
pretty
that.
good.
Yeah, of
Um, man, I mean, I used to go to Bev Francis.
course.
I think though that that has a nostalgia to it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Don't get me wrong; it's a sick gym, but I think that it's like because it's where it is and what it is that it's like it makes it special.
Yeah.
Uh, I remember when I was 20, yeah, like 21, I used to go up to Jersey City. I think it was called Strong and Shapely's, maybe.
Hmm.
It was like a meathead gym,
I've heard of that one too.
Jersey City, yeah. And like, it's just memories there. I mean, like, I don't know if it's the most impressive. I remember after I won USA's, I went to the big Las Vegas Golds that's no longer there. That was the one that Jay would train at to
On
do the
Sahara.
Olympic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was sick.
That was sick. Yeah.
That was a long time ago, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you guys probably travel more than me and see more gyms. So I don't really have. Oh, let me give a shout out to. I just went to Oklahoma, Ardmore, Oklahoma. A client of mine owns a gym out there. It's a Metroflex.
Oh, nice.
He opened it, and it's a small town, so they are the spot.
Yeah.
Uh, Outdoor section, all real nice,
That's
pretty sick
awesome.
gym. Yeah.
Yeah. We went to Alpha Land.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking of when I was like, I haven't been.
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude. I mean,
Yeah,
incredible.
right.
It's like the way I would describe it, it's like I've never been in the military, so I haven't gone to base camp, but like
Right.
you arrive on this like an actual camp, and there are like sectors. It's so fucking huge.
Yeah.
I think it's very versatile. So
Yeah.
it really can cater to the younger group and it can still cater to the older school style people like us.
Yeah.
They had three different types of gym. They
Yep.
had like your commercial gym where it's air conditioned and it's got all the plate loaded equipment. And then they had the second gym was more your bodybuilder style where it wasn't air conditioned and
Is that
all.
bodybuilder style? Because I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
like air
I don't know.
conditioned. He doesn't. Um,
You
and
don't
so
like air
there
conditioning?
was that one. And then the third gym was like a full body gym where there was one piece of equipment for each body part.
Oh,
And then
like a circuit kind of thing?
basketball courts and volleyball courts and a
Yeah, yeah.
recovery room and saunas and massage and chiropractic and a
Like
restaurant.
a rec center kind of.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it was insane. And yeah, top three for us. And like, I mean, we've been to a lot of good gyms,
There was
but
some good equipment.
yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I walk in a place like that, I'm just like, what did they spend on this?
Right.
You know,
Oh, you have to wonder.
I just, I've been around enough to, and just I've been involved with some gym franchises a little bit to the point where, um, or been around people that were, and seen like the financial end of it,
Mhm.
and it's like how long these clubs are in the red
Hmm.
after they open. It's a long time,
Yeah.
and these are like big box gyms that are like shilling out these massive personal training packages and all this stuff, right?
Mhm.
So when it's a big gym like that, I'm like, what, that's, yeah, millions and millions of dollars. But
Literally.
Yeah.
yeah,
When it comes to gym, here's a good one. So, what's more important to you? Like you're in the zone, now you get to the place, and let's just say it has state of the art. It's got Panada, it's got, you know, I carry in equipment, all the best shit. Or you're going to, let's just say, a lesser gym, but the vibe is just killer. Like you have power lifters lifting heavy shit, you got bodybuilders, you have people that you're chasing. What's more important for you when it comes to training?
I think, to be honest, it would depend on the day, you
Sure.
know?
Yeah.
Some days I really want to be alone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like I love training alone. Um, and I just don't want, sometimes I actually avoid the gyms. They're like, oh, it's a vibe, because it's like you go there and then it's like people of the community, which is good sometimes, but
Hmm.
it's also can be like a little bit much,
Yeah.
like you're not just going and getting it done. Like it's a
Right.
little more, which like I appreciate sometimes, right?
Yep.
So I think it's like half and half. Like there are a lot of days of the week where I go in, I don't really want to talk to anybody. I just want to like bang it out and go home. But there's some days where I would appreciate that energy. I think there's times where we all need to feed off of a little energy, right?
Yeah.
So I think they both have their place, man. But yeah, I'm definitely torn. I don't always seek out the vibe. Like I think you gotta have the vibe within you, You gotta you gotta
Yes.
you gotta bring the vibe. Like you don't pick up the vibe there. If you're trying to just pick up the vibe there, you're already behind the curve. Like, but some days it's definitely nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's a delicate balance because sometimes when it's too far on the vibe side, is it just going to be people with tripods recording everything? And then that just turns me off. But then if the gym's so quiet and there's like, not necessarily like you're trying to impress other people, but I don't feel like there's anyone on my level and I'm just kind of like, oh, well,
Yeah. You don't like
doesn't
being the
matter
big
what I
person.
do. Like, but
Yeah.
because I like a
Yeah.
little bit of the people above me that are kind of pushing me to be better.
Sure. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you need to be around that a little bit in some form, whether that's at the gym or, we all need something to aspire to, or to be like, hey, if you're not doing it, they are, right?
Yeah.
So that's important. But I think, yeah, like you're saying, it's like either the tripods or just everybody's like, oh, you getting ready for something? Like, which is great, And I'm not trying to sound like an asshole. Like, I talk to people in the gym all the time. I'm always happy to talk, you know, to a point, right? Um, but sometimes I feel like when it's just too vibe heavy. It's almost like everyone at church or something. It's like a fuck, it's like everybody's like, yeah, it's like a family, like,
Yeah.
and like, again, that can be good, but all the time, it's a little much.
Mhm.
Right. Well, you've been looking pretty good lately, man. Are you like, what are you doing? Are you prepping for something? Are you just, in a bulk phase?
Living life.
Neither really. I
Mhm.
think I'm just, I like to stay lean if I can, and I think I stay around this weight without having to push food. Right, I eat 4 meals a day right now.
Mhm.
Two or more snacks, two bigger meals, and I just maintain this size, probably high 220s to low 230s, somewhere in there. I don't know exactly, but I don't know, man. I toy with the idea. I think it's difficult for me to nail down like what's my goal with doing competing. And I did a show in 2021. So I came back and competed in 2020, and then I competed in 2020. I did good at fourth at Tampa Pro in
Mhm.
2020.
Hmm.
And then in 2021, I did it again in the middle of a divorce because I think I was just like, I gotta keep going, like I gotta do it. And I just had so much going on. And I made top 10, but a couple things happened during the prep that I was like, what are you doing? You know, like, so you used to compete because you want to win this, you want to go to the Olympia, you want to do this. Like, what are you doing now? Like, are you just doing this because it's like what you're supposed to do, or like, what are you doing, right? And it's not that everyone has to have an answer to that, but I think we all know that it takes a lot away from you to compete, right? It takes,
Yeah.
uh, so it depends on what you have, how much you have to give in your life, where you are in life, and what's your goal with it. And I think, and also as I get older, like I place so high out of the gate that if I come back and I'm like, it's very difficult to want to, right?
Yeah.
Like, um, so I don't know, not to sound like a bad sport, but um, I know I don't tell people like I'm done, but I'm unsure.
Sure.
I just like to stay within striking distance,
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think, your mind will kind of tell you if it's time to flip the switch or not, and if you don't really
Yeah,
find a reason to flip it, then that also
yeah.
tells you, maybe it's not time.
Hmm.
I think it's we go through stages in our life where we um, would give anything for something,
Hmm.
and there was a time in my life where I would die on that hill, right, to wear a medal, and it's like not that that doesn't no disrespect or anything to any like I just it doesn't fulfill me to that point anymore. Like I'm not willing to like throw my entire life in a sacrifice to it. Like, and I know that, but I don't know, man. It's hard. It's hard to really know.
Oh yeah. I think part of that's just getting older, like we're
Yeah.
older. I've done 31 shows. She's done 20 shows. And I
Right.
think not that, we've never had a point where, we've like stepped away, but even just like during the off season, you live life, we travel a lot. Once you step away just a little bit, you're kind of like, oh, there is other stuff.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
recognize the value outside of bodybuilding,
Yeah.
value of those moments or those trips or the people. And
Right.
because yes, you sacrifice a lot during prep.
You do, and I think that I will say that for most of my bodybuilding career, like I would just do one show a year
Hmm.
Hmm.
because I wanted to live a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
I would shut it all down for 12, 16 weeks and then turn it on. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, I always, when people are like, I want to compete, I'm like, well, what do you want? Like, what are you looking for from this?
Yeah.
Like, if it's just, hey, I just want to try it out. Great, cool, right? But like, I think yeah, it's tough, man. And even if it's just, hey, I want to learn, I want to challenge myself. I want to learn through this experience, right? Every show you do is a learning experience.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
um, but, and as you said, as you get older, I think, especially if you used to push really hard, and
Hmm.
you're like, you're just kind of aware of your mortality and you're like, ooh, like it's just different. It's just a little
Yeah.
different than when I was 22 and I just didn't give a fuck, like just
Yeah.
gonna be me, like I'll be good.
Yeah.
That's what everybody says. Until,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think getting older, I think injuries, I think any type of setback will kind of get the light bulb on to where you're like, wait a sec, I might want to think about this before I dive in or,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's like if we are talking about evolving training styles, right?
Mhm.
Like, you know, the first thought I had when I blew my adductor out, I dumped. It's like 550, and there was my fifth rep, and just I was, laying on the ground, and I was like, you asshole, like you live on the third floor, like what are you gonna do?
Right.
Drag yourself up the stairs. Like you're just like, what am I doing? Like, oh, like just dumb shit like that where you're like, I could have just put, you know, 70% of that weight and had a fine workout. Like
Sure.
what am I doing? Like it's just I think it's like recognizing your ego over time, and as the older you get, you're like, is this really productive? Or am I just being a dick? Like, am I just like, yeah.
Totally.
But it all gets the best of us sometimes, is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. As far as like let's say like the PED side, was there anything like you regret, or do you look back at like a craziest stack and you're like, what the hell was I doing? Or was it everything you thought it would be? Like when you plan this thing where you're like, I'm gonna gain 12 pounds of stage weight, and then 12 pounds of stage weight, it did happen.
Oh boy. Um, well, like I made a lot of mistakes, man. I mean, and again, like a lot of people, this is a pro of the social media thing, because back then I had to scour the internet for information, and it's like the coaching thing wasn't big back then either.
Right.
So like I was just just throwing shit at the wall and to see what stuck, right? Like
Yeah.
I was I mean, I remember the first cycle I did, we got this testosterone, and they had two options. It was like testanante 250 or testanante 450. And we
Hmm.
were like, oh, the 450 is a much better deal. Like, hell yeah. So I got the 450, and I didn't know about needle gauges. So I bought these 18 gauge inch and a half
Oh
pins.
no.
So, I mean, I was just putting this poison into my body through this spear, you
Yeah.
know, like every shot would give me this red feverish lump, but I didn't. I finished all of it. I had an abscess on my glute that I drained myself in the bathroom,
Oh,
because like I'm not going to the doctor, like
yeah.
Yeah.
like just dumb shit like that. And I don't know. I tried it. I tried. I never did things like DNP
Hmm.
or like any of the real insane but your basic stuff. I tried everything.
Yeah.
And I used to run pretty high trend. Whenever I would compete, I would go up to 100 a day of
Hmm.
trend. But like, I think if I'm going to talk about regrets, my regrets are from more of the recreational drug side, and like that I would mix the two, and
Hmm.
that I was just a shithead, like that. I think that, um, yeah, because coming up in bodybuilding, like I said, I never partied, I never did anything, and then I started smoking weed to like help me eat and help me sleep,
Hmm.
and then later on, I moved to Florida, and then there's people doing this, that, and it's just like, I mean, there's a lot of bodybuilders, man, and there's a lot of the people on social media now who are like reprimanding others, like, man, I've been with those dudes at after parties,
Hmm.
crazy shit. I've seen it all. Like, like a lot of these guys party hard, and it's an interesting thing once you really get deep into it to realize, like, really what goes on, and how many of these people
Right.
are really just like just dumping everything into their body.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that from the time I was about 26, almost to 30, like a dark time of just
Hmm.
like up and down with drugs. Um, so like, and do I regret it? Like, yeah, I wouldn't do it again, obviously, right?
Right.
It taught me a lot of very painful lessons. I'm very grateful
Hmm.
that I didn't um, hurt myself or hurt anybody else, right?
Hmm.
I wrecked two cars, um, falling asleep at the wheel, and I just crashed into like a divider, like didn't hit
Hmm.
anybody. Like I'm very fortunate.
Yeah.
But um, Yeah. Other than that, I warn people, I'm like, when you start taking PEDs, depending on who you're around, it's like all your lines start to become blurred of like, I'm taking this for that. Oh, and then that makes this happen. So I'll take this for that, and then this for that, and that for this, and this. And before you know it, it's like this massive spider web of pharmaceuticals that you're tangled up in. Like if you let it get there. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. So yeah, I tell people be careful. But that would be, and the most gear I ever took was when I looked the absolute worst, and it's because I was just on drugs and I was trying to compensate for it, and that was the
Yeah.
biggest cycle I ever took. But when I was doing well, my cycles were very normal. I
Mhm.
never took a lot of growth hormone at all. I think when I won USA's, I was taking 300 mgs a test, 700 trin and 700 masteron.
Mhm.
You know, just a
Typical national stack. Yeah.
basic stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you overcome like part of the addiction? How did that look like?
Well, um, so when I was in Florida, I'll skip all the leading up to it, but it
Mhm.
was a lot of personal drama, and you know, uh, I dated the same girl from when I started competing when I was 22 up until my first, and then we like right before my first Olympia, she was like, I'm not into this anymore. And
Mhm.
I like had a ring for her and everything. And I was just like,
Man.
just destroyed.
Yeah.
Um, and so like there was a lot going on, and that was drug out longer than it should have been. But anyways, when I'm living in Florida, there was like this designer drug that we didn't know what it was, called tianeptine sodium. Have you heard of this?
Mhm.
Heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they would sell it online, and I had never had like panic attacks and stuff, but I was just melting down. I was having a bad time, and people were like, "Oh, try this, man. It's like painkillers without any of the negative effects."
Mhm.
And
Right.
I was like, "Okay." So of course I was taking it, and it would help, of course. But the problem is that drug was sold as a pharmaceutical called Stablon in 12.5 milligram tablets, right? But we had tubs of the powder.
Mhm.
And once the dose passes a certain point, it's just a direct opioid agonist, right? And plus other things, like it's hitting all kinds of receptors in your body.
Okay.
I would have to read it again to tell you exactly what, but it's a tricyclic antidepressant. So it's messing with your serotonin, and it's also a direct opioid agonist, like I said. So, um, and the half life is like an hour and a half. So, the first time I ran out of it, I couldn't leave my apartment. I couldn't sleep or eat, and I was like, oh shit, like this is for real. Like I'm fucked.
Yeah.
But at that point, it was so bad that I realized I can't quit, because if I quit, I won't be able to go to work. I won't be able to train. I
Mhm.
won't be able to do these appearances. I won't be able to, right? Like I
Yeah.
was going to have to go away for like a month plus
Yeah.
to do that. And so I was like, fuck, like I got to just ride it out until I can stop, like, and
Mhm.
take. So, but the problem is, I did that. Um, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but uh, when I did eventually, I went to outpatient, but then they put you on Suboxone and they put me on Klonopin.
Mhm.
And then that lasted another. And then the doctor was prescribing me Klonopin. He just dropped dead. Like I
Oh,
called for a refill, and they're like, "Oh, he's dead." Just dropped dead out of nowhere.
yeah.
And then no one would give it to me anymore. So then I started ordering it online. And then it's like, look, I'm a grown man and I'm responsible for my own actions. But it's like you get into like relationship situations and stuff where it's like you just have, stuff going on. And you just have as much as you want of this drug. So you just take more, right? And yeah, eventually it gets out of hand. Um, I'm leaving a lot out, but just a general. But eventually my ex-wife was like, I can't, because when I would run out, the benzodiazepines was the worst thing. Xanax and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I I tell people, like, if I had to quit them again from the amount I was taking, I think it would kill me a second time.
Mhm.
Like it's like an unexplainable horror to quit those. Because I was running through about, oh man, probably 30.5s in a day and a half or 2 days, just to stay
Yeah.
okay.
Man.
And so, like, when you stop from that, you can die,
Mhm.
Like, the only two things you can die from withdrawal is alcohol and benzodiazepines. Like,
Mhm.
heroin and stuff, you'll feel like you're going to die, but it won't kill you directly,
Sure.
right? But these will kill you. And so, like, I would have times where I'd run out and I would just have to go lock myself in a room and just, like, it's horrific. You know, your body would just start shutting down. And you eventually, I tapered down a little bit, but my ex-wife was like, I can't, it's like you almost die every few months from this. Like, I can't do this anymore. And so that was good. Like, I'm glad we're divorced now, but I'm also glad that she said that at that time, because it was just a push I needed to
Right.
do that. Um, but yeah, man, I think the scariest thing about those is that there's a big physical withdrawal. But if you've been shutting off anxiety for years, like, your brain doesn't know how to handle it anymore.
Mhm.
Like, and so, like, it doesn't work. Like, and so it's the feeling, I guess the best way to describe it is, how you see people talk to somebody who's like 95 years old, like, hey, do you want it? Like, you feel like that's going to be how people have to treat you for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And, like, you're going to have to be put in a home. Like, you can't handle it. It's like you've lost your mind and you don't think it's ever going to come back. And
Mhm.
this goes on for a long time. You have to, like, so yeah, it's really awful. I mean, but yeah, I don't know.
It sounds
That's
terrifying, like when you put it that way.
It's very scary, like, because I've had a lot of physical things that are scary, but there's nothing really scarier than the reality of, like, I've lost my mind and it's never coming back.
Yeah,
Like, that is really terrifying. Um, yeah.
absolutely. Well, that's huge, man, for getting clean. I mean, props to
Yeah.
you. That's
You gotta
amazing.
you dig a hole, you gotta dig your way out of it, right? I mean, that's just kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Yeah, good
yeah,
for you. You're coaching people, aren't you? For
yeah,
shows and stuff? Okay, that's
yeah.
what I thought. Yeah, I thought I'd seen a few things.
Hmm.
I guess to switch gears, I always like to ask people too, especially like yourself, a high level athlete, who's been the most impressive bodybuilder that you've seen in person?
Hmm. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
So I think that there's two different types of impressive, right? There's impressive, like a really good actual bodybuilder, but some of the biggest, roundest, freakiest human beings I've ever seen were just people at expos that were, like, working at a booth,
Yeah.
who, like, never turned pro, but they were like 350 pounds, or just like this
Yeah.
fucking huge. Um, and bodybuilding's really interesting like that. Sometimes the people who are, like, really good, like a Phil Heath, for example,
Hmm.
if he walked in show ready in a tracksuit, he looks muscular, but you don't look at him and be like, holy shit. right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
but like he fucking beat everyone for 7 years in a row, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting like that. And I think that some people like to see in person, like Dennis Wolf,
Hmm.
I just just a really wide, big person,
Yeah.
right? And those dudes, like when you see him, you're like, damn, like that's a big motherfucker, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that's what I mean. Like, what do we mean by impressive bodybuilder? Like some of the most visually impressive, it doesn't necessarily. Dennis Wolf was a great bodybuilder, obviously, but I'm
Yeah.
saying oftentimes it doesn't translate to being a great bodybuilder, really. You know,
Yeah.
it's
I know
interesting.
exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who else I saw that when I was 18. This is cool. My parents had sent me to a Christian college, and I was not having a good time. Um, I just worked out anyway. So, but do you know who Irvin Gelb is by any chance?
I don't think so.
So he's a photographer that he used to shoot like all the guys back in the day,
Okay.
right? Like the era that we're talking about, 90s, you know, like Kevin Levrone and Lee
Sure.
Priest, Jay and Ryan, then the heyday, Flex Wheeler, you know.
Hmm.
So he hits me up. I think it was bodybuilding.com. I had posted something on a thread. You know, as a teenager, I was
Yeah.
18. Uh, and he wrote me, he's like, you have a really impressive physique for a natural, you know,
Hmm.
teenager. He's like, you're going to be really good. He's like, you're in Ohio now. I'm going to go to the Arnold. If you will help me with my bags, I'll give you a press pass and you can come to the Arnold with me. And I went to the Arnold with Irvin Gelb. And just as an 18-year-old who was like super, like that was so new to me.
Right.
And uh, it was really cool. It was a very memorable experience because I got to be there with all of the big guys, you know,
Yeah.
like in the athletes meeting. And yeah, that was cool.
Yes.
Um, so that was probably the time where I was looking at everyone like, whoa, you know. And the interesting thing is, you know, I was, yeah, 18. And I remember meeting Flex Lewis there. And then, like, let's see. Yeah, just um, 7 years later, I was competing against him, you know?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting like that.
Yeah.
The people you're like waiting in line, and like, whoa. And then it's like you're next to him.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
That's crazy. How did it feel standing next to those guys? Were you like fanboy or were you like, hey, maybe I can catch one of them off and beat them?
Um, I think that you compete to win, right?
Yeah.
You also know when you bodybuild that you kind of have an idea of who you can beat and who you can't beat, right?
Mhm. Yep.
It just is what it is. Um, I think that I was grateful to be up there with them. Um, I think that I don't know how much of a like, and I'm trying to think of how to put this into words of a bodybuilding fan I was,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
like I said earlier, like I got into bodybuilding as like I need to do this, like like to save myself, or like this is what I have to do,
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
and I happened to take to it. But you know, I see a lot of people that like from the beginning they're looking at the magazines like, wow, I aspire to be that. And I don't think that was never me.
Hmm.
Obviously, once I decided like, well, this is what I have to do, then yeah, I would look and be like, I need to look like that, I need to beat that. But I think there's just a different edge on it of like I'm not saying and maybe that sounds negative. I don't mean to say like I don't look up to people, but or like I'm not a fan, but like I think it's just a different angle, you know.
Yeah, like a
That came
different
at,
path.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
get that.
yeah.
Well, yeah, this has been great, man. And as we wrap up, we'll know a couple things. Number one, for coaching, where should people reach you if they want to reach out for a coach?
Instagram is the best. You know, shoot me a DM, or I've got the link in the bio to just leave me your contact info, and I'll reach out to you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, one final question. So let's say you have an up and comer, kind of like we talked about earlier, and they have great potential, and they go to, let's say they go to their first national show or maybe their second national show, and they don't win, but people at the gym, maybe their parents have been telling them, hey, you got all this potential, like you're going to be a pro, you're going to win the Olympia, but they go and they don't win. What's your advice? What's your best piece of advice for someone like that in that point of view?
Well, the first thing I want to say is always be careful. Even the voices that are encouraging you, like, be careful what ones you let inside, because people will mean the best, and they'd be like, "You should do it. You can do it. You should do it." But it's like, what do you want? You know,
Mhm.
like, what do you really want? Because there's not a right answer. And it's so easy for people on the outside to see something and be like, you could have this thing, like you go get this thing. And it's like, well, do you want the thing?
Right.
You know, is that thing going to bring you fulfillment? And I think that's the big one you have to answer first.
Mhm.
Like, what do you want? Right. And take everyone else out of it. Like, what do you want deep in your soul? Like, what do you want? Right. And then the reality is bodybuilding is bodybuilding, and it's about being at the right place at the right time.
Mhm.
And you could nail it and be amazing, and some freak will show up from left field and smoke you, right? Like, that's just how it is, and it sucks, you know. But it's like that's what you signed up for,
Yeah.
and it's so I don't know. I think the big thing is it's like, because I hear this a lot where people are like, my coaches, they believe in me and they're telling me to do this. I'm like, of course they say that. Of course they say
Yeah.
that, right? Like, of course, that's their job, right? To be like, I believe in you. You should do this. Of course. What do you want?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's
That's great.
like, I think that's really important, especially in something like this. Like, just really decide what you want, and that's what you should do.
Hmm.
Love it, man. Yeah. That's a great way to look at it. Well, perfect, man. Hey, we appreciate you coming on here, brother.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. I'll let you know when we release it and everything.
Thanks, man.
All right,
Appreciate it.
buddy. Have a good day, buddy.
Enjoy the
Okay.
rest of your day.
We'll see
Thanks.
you.